Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Stormkeep. My name is Paul, and I am joined by Knight podcast star James. How you doing today,
How's it
James?
going? Not to pay yourself. How's it going, everybody?
Here we go. So, Mrigank will be here. He's running a little bit late, and he has a very good reason this time. I'm not going to get into what it is, but it's not going to be some frivolous thing like getting dinner with his parents, like last time. So today we are going to be talking about the Annihilator painting contest that went on during February. It was our first contest sponsored by Torchlight. We were able to get a box of Storm Drakes as the prize, and we're very excited about that. And the next one, because we had such a great turnout, will have an even better prize pool. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to that.
What's going on, Jace?
After we talk about the painting contest, we are going to get into recent events. James went to an RTT, and he'll tell you all about that. And Mrigank, if he makes it on time, is going to talk about his experience at the Cherokee Open. And we'll get into a discussion about where the metagame for AOS 3.1 is going. Kragnos has had some expected but still interesting implications on the metagame. Storm Drakes are freaking everywhere, and people are building around them. Hey man, we're live. Welcome. You okay?
Yeah. I was able to quickly just drive it past.
Okay. No, I didn't say what happened. I figured if you wanted to talk about it, you could. But
No, someone turned it. I'll leave it for later.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have the slides available on your end?
I do.
Okay, because we're going to be looking at photos, so that part's pretty important. I was just saying, James went to an RTT recently. You went to Cherokee Open. You went 5-0, and you came in second overall. I believe you got the best general award as well, based on that photo that you posted.
Second best, actually.
Oh,
Turns
second
out
best.
the dragon player. Yeah, because the dragon player. Apparently, he just had more raw points than me, which is fair. He's you're playing in a meta that rewards monster play. So.
Philippe says you sound like you're dead, which let's say
me?
Yeah. Let's just say I'm glad you're not.
Yeah. Hold on, let me adjust my sound actually.
All right, so let's go into the painting contest, and I'm going to do a very not so stylish transition here. I will get better at this as we go along. I promise. So the Annihilator painting contest, we picked our favorites for any reason. You know, if you guys ever watched Red Letter Media's Best of the Worst, they have a segment where they just pick whatever movie they want for whatever reason they want. They don't have to justify why they like it, and that's kind of the criteria we went with too. If we like it, it made the finals, and then we figured we could talk about it. So this first one here is from Full Metal Accident. Now, I thought that the rules specified the bases had to be finished, but I think we're going to let this one slide because the lighting effect is just so good on this. I really like this.
Yeah, it's excellent job on the OSL, quite frankly, and the key proponents of OSL sort of being like you're setting up a setting in a dark setting and then having your weapon effect glow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dark on one side and the light on the other, and the fact that he mixed it up because of how they're holding the weapons fits this unit really well. It looks really good as an individual model, but it looks even better as a squad, right? Because of how these guys are set up. So Full Metal Accident, great job, man. I would like to get a more clear picture because this one's a little bit out of focus, right? I'd like to, if you have a chance, if you watch this video, please post a very clear photo because I would very much like to see it, especially with the bases done. I would like to see how you base these guys, how you put that on there, and if you incorporate the OSL into the base as well. Next up here, we've got one from Chris James. This is a really cool anvil scheme. I think it's a little bit blurry, so it's hard to tell, but I like this. I especially like the like white Sigmar emblem. Everywhere on the armor gets repeated in that same kind of white and blue tone, and that makes it look like it's kind of glowing, and I really appreciate that about it.
Yeah, I like that. The white undertones stand out.
The next one here is from Balefire, and this one has a really freaking cool color scheme. I really, really like this one. You don't see this texture on armor, especially with the way he's blended in the dirt on the feet, the like blue and white, and then contrasted with the red earth. I think that looks pretty cool. He's done some lighting effects around the emblem on the shield, which looks pretty cool, and it matches the same color as the armor. It almost looks like the armor itself is made out of lightning, which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, I was gonna say it kind of looks like a bit of a motion blur thing going on. Like if you've ever seen like hand draw animation trying to replicate like a lot of movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. Moving on here, we have a recurring painter from our Discord, Jansen Ring. He really enjoys using these like Spartan helms and these nameplates that he finds, and they look great here again. The scheme he does looks really good on these Annihilators. The red, white, silver combo with gold accents, just really good stuff. I really like it. He did submit. He submitted a picture of like 6 of these guys, and I had to crop it and frame it so that it's only 3, so it would fit with our requirements. I didn't want to be unfair. I didn't want to put a photo of 6 guys in here. But again,
he paints more than you.
He painted more, so he wins. Great job, Jansen. This looks great. I love how this army is shaping up. I just wonder how like having a whole army of these little nameplates around it would look. I think last time we mentioned that they're like detachable. Is that right? Yeah. So
I think they are. I can't remember what exact site orders them, but like you can detach them, but like I think most people glue them on. So I might be wrong on that.
Well, it certainly makes it easy to figure out if you're an opponent. Like, oh, what is that model? Oh, just read it. 6 guys is twice as good. Yeah, obviously, you get twice as many points. However we judge this, you know?
Yeah.
I dig it. One thing I did notice, and this drives me crazy about my own Annihilators, you can see on the middle guy on the glove, I guess the wrist guard, you can see there's a little bit of a mold line left over. And that's the most obnoxious mold line in any GW kit I've ever seen, because if you try to scrape it off using any tool that exists on this planet, it will scrape off the rivet along with it, and also remove the curve from the armor. And then
it's also there on the leg plates. The plates that are on their thighs, there's a ton of mold lines there, especially on my Annihilator kit. It's a nightmare trying to remove those.
I don't get why they had to put it there.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. And it's on both sides of the glove, which is like even more infuriating. Yeah, so this isn't like a
Speaking of digging things.
Well, we'll save the complaining for later. Who do we got next?
Dignica. Oh, I see. You were doing a transition, and I was too slow in the take. Another anvil scheme. Dignica's done really nice edge highlighting here, and this is, James, you want to talk about this one?
Put me on the spot, why don't you? Serves me right for eating chocolate during the live stream. No, really solid job here, Dignica. I'm loving the anvil scheme. The only thing I would probably advise is if you can get a little bit of better lighting for your shots. But overall, man, I like the direction you're going with your models. I follow your Instagram. Some fantastic jobs going on there.
Oh yeah, this looks solid. I really love that death mask on the far right. Like the traditional anvil's death mask.
Yeah, and I like that you didn't do that on every model. I like that it's like sprinkled in every now and then, because if it was every model, it wouldn't look very good or very special. Yeah, it would probably still look good, but it wouldn't be this like unique thing that that makes that guy stand out, right? So yeah, it looks good. I'm noticing that everybody so far, every Annihilator I've seen painted, period, everywhere, has like the lightning that they sculpted on the model. Everybody's painted it blue. I would love to see people do it like red, yellow, pinks, greens, get like real creative with it.
Well, let's move on with our slides. Maybe we'll see it.
This one here from Caraxis. Caraxis has done an excellent job shading the armor with non-metallic metal blue, which I'm a huge fan of just this color scheme in general. Doing this particular shade of blue in a non-metallic looks fantastic. And for some reason,
let's be honest.
Go ahead.
It's cobalt, not blue.
Cobalt, yeah, that's exactly the right word for it. This kind of cobalt looks great, and for some reason, it looks really good on Annihilators, and it doesn't look good on Primaris Space Marines. Like if you did this same thing on Primaris, it wouldn't look as good. It's something about these models with their proportions that makes it really stand out.
Yeah, super edge highlighting too. Jesus, it's
Yeah.
really, really good.
And the red shields as well are a nice touch. I like that in the scheme because it ties in with the gems. I'm not sure. See, when I looked at the Annihilators, I thought like on the shoulders, he's got little red gems painted. I thought those were like lightning crackles. I didn't realize those were gems. Did I misread those?
Oh, are you talking? Oh, you mean on the lower shoulder?
Yeah. On the top of their shoulder.
Yeah,
I thought that was like part of the
yeah.
lightning bolt frame underneath it, but it seems like he's
Oh,
painted
those
it as.
those aren't strictly gems. He's painted them as that, but I think they're like armor locks. Like it's what locks the two shoulder pads in place. It's like a
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
how
I
I
don't know what
painted
the
mine
term's
on
called.
my scheme.
Yeah, from a practical standpoint, that's what I figured it was. And then that's why I painted mine to match like the lightning bolt. So like if I was doing the scheme, I would have painted them in gold, just based on the
Right.
colors he's used here, right? But I like it, and the bases are great too. I appreciate that the bases are. A lot of times when you get sculpted bases, they go like they way overhang the base, and that makes it really annoying to play with them. Looks great for displays, but this kept it constrained to the volume of the top of the base, which I really like.
Yeah, it goes in, not out. So
Yeah.
I like that.
It's nice work. Very nice work. Great cobalt, great highlighting, great work. Next up, we have Obliviator 27 with a very unique scheme. I haven't seen like black armor with red trim. That looks really cool, especially with like a green kind of black. This is just a very unique scheme. And then he mixes it all in with this like goldish yellow because he's got gold accents, but then also like yellow on the weapon, which I really like. I like the way that weapon is framed.
Yeah, I love the weapon on this, and yeah, the black and red just tie so beautifully. The weird thing is that's also why one of the reasons I never do anvils outside of Sacrosanct Chamber units, because it's like just the black and gold sometimes doesn't cut it for me. But like he's managed to tie in the red robes. Like remember the Sempiternals had like red robes and like so, and he somehow managed to replicate that red feeling with black, red, and gold. That looks really, really cool.
Yeah,
I really love this game.
He's kind of created like robes out of their thigh plates. Is that right? Is that what those are? Thigh plates? Let's call them that. Hip plates? Sure. Yeah, he's managed to create like a robe look with that, and it kind of frames the model in a different way than the other ones we've seen previously, which just paint it as the same as the other armor. So it looks cool. I really like it.
Really, really nice.
And then again, another really wild scheme. I really like this one from Mortis. This green one here, and it really stands out the closer you look at it because it if you look at this from far away, it looks a little dirty. But when you zoom in on it, it's like intentionally dirty, right? Like it's supposed to look worn and weathered, and it looks like there's battle damage everywhere. These guys have been out in this area for a long time. But the like teal with neon pink, that is not a combination you see. But they just kind of flattened it out by having black in there as well. So this is a really cool color scheme.
It's well thought out.
Yeah, not your typical scheme at all when it comes to Stormcast, and that's what I really appreciated about it.
Well executed, and I like the what are we calling it? The tuts that we just got at Torchlight.
Yeah, they're stocking those now. Those alien grass looking ones.
Yeah, what was the name of the company? I forgot. I'm sorry, I'm blanking here.
It's Gamer Grass.
Gamer, that's the one. Those great toughs to work with.
Yeah. No, this is great. I like the battle damage. It's centered to particular spots, but then you can see there's still clean areas on other parts of the model, so it has something to contrast with. Because something people really get carried away with battle damage, and I'm not like an excellent painter or anything, but this is something I've noticed is that they do it all over the model. And when it's all over the model, it's kind of like there's nothing to contrast it with, so the whole model just looks dirty. But you can see there's still parts of these models that are pristine, right? Especially like the Annihilator Prime, his left hip plate is pristine, has no battle damage on it, but the right one's seen a whole lot of wear. And I think just being able to see that difference makes this really stand out.
Yeah, well, because the left one's under the shield. Makes sense.
Yeah.
He holds the shield up, so he's fine there.
Makes sense. And this is the pink lightning. I was saying I wanted to see some like really crazy colors for lightning, so I really appreciate that. Sigmar's lightning doesn't always have to be blue, right? Moving on to length. This entry is great. I love this color scheme. A lot of times people do white armor and don't pick the right tones for red and gold and things to go along with it. But I think Length's color scheme really nails it. I think he's got the right tones of each color here. Even the
Yeah.
brown he has is like a reddish kind of brown. It's not too blue. It's not too gray. It's like a brighter kind of brown, which fits with this.
Yeah. I really like this scheme. It's difficult to tie red and gold together. I feel like I've seen some Blood Angel schemes and it doesn't always tie in together, but with the white, I think it really ties it in well. So I like this scheme.
Because the main color here is the white, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes it good.
Yeah, I love me a good white armor scheme, and when I was planning out what scheme to initially paint my Stormcast, this kind of scheme was what I originally wanted to go with. So kudos to you, Length.
And this is an example of somebody who didn't paint in the lightning, right? Which we can kind of see that it creates a different character for these models if we don't paint it in, because I don't know. I'm torn on whether you should or shouldn't, but it still looks good even without it, so I don't mind.
Right.
Yeah, very classy, Jace. I agree. I like the way these models turned out. I think the only thing I would have done differently if I was doing this scheme is I would have painted the red gems on top of the weapons to tie in the red on the armor. Because you can see he's painted them gold on top, on those little nubby bits, for lack of a better word. So yeah, I think I would have painted those as gems. Great work otherwise, though. Moving on here, next one. This is a color scheme that's very near to James's heart, because it's basically his color scheme. Tourniquet. I think it's Tourniquet.
Tourniquet.
Yeah, this is a great scheme. I like silver and purple together, and gold as an accent works really well, especially with blue lightning to add like a fourth color into the mix. The bases are well done. I like the snow effect. It's not overdone. It looks great. I also like that the shields have glowing eyes. A lot of people don't do that, but I really like that effect because it almost makes it feel like the lightning is just pouring out of the shield, not just around the edge of the symbol, but like every aspect of the shield is just vibrating with lightning.
Yeah.
Also, green gems. That's more color added onto the model, which is great because when you have silver armor, it's really easy to just have the whole model look plain. But when you add on all these color bits everywhere, it starts to really pop.
Makes it stand out, yep.
And then the last thing I really like about this scheme, and a few other people have done this already that we've looked at, is the way the hammer's painted. It's got like a silver interior, but then gold kind of outlining it on both sides, framing it together. And that's another spot where the sprue, the mold line is, which, oh man, it drives me crazy. Trying to get in between each of those little spikes with a mold line cleaner and not ruin the model. Ugh. It's awful. Not this paint job. This paint job's great.
Yeah.
Yep. S tier.
Another recurring member, Andreas SCE, was actually the winner of our previous contest with his Knight Relictor, and he has done a spectacular job on these Annihilators. He also posted an extra shot in our Discord of just a close-up on the faces, and they look fantastic. I highly recommend people go digging for
really
that.
like his really like his detail on the faces. Also white weaponry, not something ivory weaponry. I'm sorry, you don't see that very often.
I was inspired by him, and I decided to pick my Knight-Judicator bow to be a white ivory type thing. So, Andreas, likewise, I've been following you on Instagram. Fantastic work, and this is top tier for you.
People don't do blue armor that often from Tempest Lords or whatever. It looks good.
Yeah, especially with his non-metallic metal, which looks really good. The only parts where I say it's a little weird would be like the crescent moon on the shoulder. It looks a little off there. Like I'm not sure how the light would reflect off of a circular piece like that. But it's just gorgeous everywhere, right? Like if you look at the shoulder, if you look at the gloves right along the forearms, at the edge there where the gold is, that's done with the same kind of thing. Like it just looks great everywhere. It's really nice work, man. And you got to think if this didn't win, then what did we put in as our top entry?
Right.
Oh man, great! Even the silver. Look at the silver on this. You know, like that's also done in a way that's shaded naturally. Like it looks like the light is reflecting off it. The bottom pieces of the chain mail are reflecting differently than the top most pieces. Just fantastic work, man.
Yep.
And coming up next is Ox King, who is just a legend.
King of conversions. King of conversions.
Yeah.
Long-time member of the Discord.
Yeah, his conversions on these Annihilators have been out since we started our podcast and Discord, and they're fantastic. He nails it. The
Every
idea
time.
of
Yep.
of what Annihilators look like coming down on the battlefield, they're still blazing with like celestial energy as they crash into the ground and they charge into you. Like these guys look like they're gonna deal a whole bunch of mortal wounds when they charge you. This looks
Hmm.
great. And his lighting is on
Yeah.
point too. Everywhere where the celestial
Yep.
energy is, there's blue glowing appropriately around the legs, on the parchment, on the shoulders. It's just so good.
Yeah. It's just I have no words. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah. Just again, big shout out to Ox King, man. You do phenomenal work, but unfortunately, there was just one entry that we liked a little bit more than yours, which is it's just tough to say because you also do great battle damage too. Like if you look at the Annihilator Prime, he's a little
Yeah.
chipped on the armor, like little details here and there. The guy on the left, he's
The
got his
skulls.
skull on the chest. He's got a chunk taken out of his knee pad. Like
Yeah.
the conversion here is excellent.
If you haven't, I highly suggest, as well as the other folks I mentioned to follow on Instagram, Ox King here, legendary when it comes to his models, quite frankly, in my opinion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think we do have a guide for this that he posted in our Discord, painted in our which channel is it in? Off the top of my head, I don't know. It's gonna drive me crazy, but it's in our Discord. It's pinned in one of the painting channels, and yeah. So if you're looking to do a conversion like this, you should check it out. It's great. It looks great. Really sets the mood for these models.
People are curious to see who won. There's outrage right now.
Okay, so we've had great entries, but I think we all kind of when we picked our like list of the ones we wanted to talk about, every single person had this one on there. Even like Torchlight, I asked them their opinion, and they're like, "Oh, it's these ones," and I'm like, "Yep, makes sense." So congratulations to Brad Gamma for his absolutely beautiful, technically proficient, excellent work on these Annihilators. The Cobalt here is amazing. I love the way that he's shaded these shoulder pads, going in from like an inner source of light. You can see that the top of the chest plate is shaded brighter, but then the bottom of the thigh plates is shaded. Like he's nailed it. This looks amazing.
Yep. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Just like everything from the shading to just like little bits of detail, and the scheme is obviously really good. Like the Cobalt is done excellently. Even the base is, it looks amazing. Just clean technical proficiency all around.
And the colors on the base are worked into the scheme as well, because if you look at the shading underneath the armor panels, that matches the leaves
It's
that are
creating
around the feet.
shadows.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's really great. The white is a little bit flat, but it's intentionally flat, right? Like it's dark in the tiny recess. Like it's not even a recess, but just the way it's shaded creates a recess as it travels up towards their head from the edge of their shoulders. Just that little attention to detail is so good. I got to know, Brad Gamma, we're going to be talking to you about shipping you your box of Stormdrake Guard. But when we do, I would love to know how many layers this took, like how much time you spent glazing this up, because their transition is so smooth. It's really, really good. If this was done with an airbrush, kudos. But I would love to know how to do this with a standard brush as well. Like even the photo is great. Like you nailed the light, you nailed the depth, everything's sharp and in focus. This is just a phenomenal entry. So congratulations. I think it's well deserved. This is a phenomenal entry.
Yeah.
I'm just admiring it for one more second. Sorry. No, we got to move on.
That's perfectly okay, man.
It's so good, man. I aspire to be a painter this good one day. All right. This is the smoothest transition ever. All right. So, moving on. James, you went to an RTT recently. Tell us about that. I've got your list here on the side, but if you want to break it down for us and then kind of go through your matchups and your overall impressions.
Yeah, so let's start with the not so great for the podcast. Went to a local just in a couple cities over from us, and just sort of a small invitational for a small store that was being hosted by some people who play in the meta. And yeah, it was just an eight-player tournament. My list, your basic Hallowstrike, decided to include some Drakes in there, just to see how they played. First opportunity getting to play them on a competitive level. But your staples of having a Knight-Judicator, Vanguard Raptors, and Liberator screens are all there. Brought some Aether Wings as well for extra coverage as needed. Matchups, I should go over my overall record. This one, I went to a whopping 1-2. Or, sorry, yeah, 1-2. 1 win, 2 losses. First matchup was against Living Cities. That list had your standard Crossguard Phoenix with Phoenix Guard, one squad of 4 Fulminators, one squad of 2 Fulminators, and Celestial Hurricane. So
tough list for a first matchup.
Really tough list for a first matchup. Really tough list for a first time playing against Cities of Sigmar. So I knew generally what was gonna happen with it. Again, we just recently did the podcast episode on it, so a little bit versed. But it became a matter of both of us were trying to see who would pull the trigger first. And in the process, my opponent there took an objective, and it caused me to lag behind a little bit. So I ended up pulling the trigger, and my Drakes ended up getting Fulminator swarmed.
Rough.
Yeah. But yeah, shout out to Jake on that one, because actually what happened there was went the whole game, and then at the end of it, I told him, just like, yeah, that really should have probably went a little bit better for me. I should have probably played around it a little bit more, especially considering my podcast did an episode on it. And then he asked, well, what podcast are you with? And I'm just like, well, the Stormkeep. And he's like, oh, no way, I really like you guys. So kudos to see some local recognition, right?
Yeah. Now, Living City is a tough matchup. It's like playing the Stormcast mirror in the sense that, like, you have to trade down hammers, except they can keep their hammer off the board and guarantee charge, right? Whereas if Stormcast tried doing that with Fulminators or with Drakes, if you keep them off the board, then you're hoping for a 9-inch charge, which is a coin flip, which is not a great strategy. I don't recommend that. Living Cities is definitely one of the toughest matchups for us right now.
Yeah,
definitely.
Following that, match number 2 was against Hammers of Sigmar. So speaking of the mirror, this one, it was a pretty standard Bastion's battle regiment. So we had Bastion, squad of 4 Fulminators, 2 or 3 squads of Libs, Judicators with bows, and a squad of 15, and a Knight Relictor, or as my opponent like to call them, Knight Relocator.
Relocator.
Get a translocation, right?
Yeah. I like it.
And yeah, just another one of those things where I had a mindset of how I was going to play the matchup, but because of the way I deployed, I ended up getting a little greedy and flubbed a few things, and I actually had lost a Drake every turn to Bastion, which was kind of embarrassing. But yeah, he was consistently doing like 8 to 12 wounds worth of damage on me.
Not ideal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did manage to snuff out his Fulminators and clear out his screen of Liberators in the first turn. But again, by then he was able to push down his Skybolt pulls against my Raptors. My Raptors were underperforming in the game. Rolled really badly with them. Like I maybe got like 1-6. Yeah, exactly. I maybe rolled like 2 6s and a whole bunch of 2s when I was hitting on 3s. So
yikes.
Yeah. Well, you're getting a lot of practice against the mirror.
Yeah. And on another note of the mirror, shout out to Bevan, who's one of our podcast members, or not podcast members, but Discord members there. I played the Hallowstrike mirror as my last matchup. So we played Savage. Up until then, it was Survival of the Fittest was the second one, and then the first one was the one with the vantage points. I keep forgetting that one. First Blood, that's the one.
Right.
The last battle plan was Savage Gains, so that's the 4 objectives, and neutral's worth 2 points, your objective's worth 1, your opponent's objective is worth 4. This was the one where I sort of like reflected on all the mistakes I made, and just sort of didn't make them and adjusted my playstyle. So it wasn't Gardas in a castle anymore. It was Gardas protecting my drakes. So advance my drakes up on my opponent's objective, sit them there. So I had 10 models on his objective, scoring 4 points a turn. Meanwhile, dropping Gardas and having Mystic Shield active on the drakes. Those drakes were not going anywhere at that point, or getting shot off anytime soon.
Yeah, one thing I like about the Drake variant of this list is that you can play it either way. You can play it more aggressively, and you can't do that with the Dracoth variant. But then the Dracoth variant just does like infinity damage, which is really, really useful in its own way, right? Like whatever you hit with Fulminators on the charge will die. There's not much that's surviving against it.
Yeah. So just a note to Jace there, what I enjoyed about this particular matchup was at the end when I had one of the TOs ask who won, and I just told him just like, Hollow Knights won.
Yeah, Hollow Knights always win.
Hollow Knights.
Nice.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Run me through why you chose, like, you said you wanted to use the Drakes, and you said you wanted to use Hallowstrike. But what about, like, your battalion choices? You could have gone for less drops with this, right? Like, I think you probably could have fit this in 2 battle regiments and had a 2-drop list. But instead you went for extra value. You went for the Aether Wings even outside of a battalion. Or maybe they could have been part of Warlord. I think they could. Does Warlord have max 2 or 3 troops? And I can never
Max
remember.
2 troops.
Yeah,
Max 2.
okay. So the Aether Wings are kind of just sitting out there, which isn't a big deal. Like, you don't really need battalions for anything.
I mean, you're not. Warlord doesn't do anything for that. It's pointless.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just a
you
tax,
can do it
right?
just for consistency. Yeah. If you have that OCD or whatever, but yeah, sure.
Well, I was going into this one figuring that everybody. Well, I don't know what everybody's list was at the time, but after the fact, I saw everybody was optimizing the battle regiment. Quite frankly, when I played my practice game the weekend prior, I had seen that if the Drakes get stuck in a corner and the match moves outside of that deployment, then the Drakes are going to spend a little bit to get out of that deployment. Unless you would translocate, or no, because he would still hero phase move them up. Yeah, so at that point I thought my solution was, well, we'll just do a Warlord to get Steadfast Marching. And I figured, because I'm likely to...
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
And I figured because I'm likely to play a bunch of armies that I haven't played up against at that point, I'm going to likely value the information from my opponent deploying faster than I will to see where they land and potentially playing around it.
Yeah, because you've got Incantor, you've got Long Strikes. You can take first or second turn. If your opponent forces you to go first, you can still take off some key pieces with the Long Strikes. And if they go first, you've got an Incantor on the table to protect against magic, and you can put some stuff in Scions as needed. Unfortunately, you don't know if you're going to go first or not, so you can't get the most value out of volley turn 1, depending on a lot of matchups. So that's always the downside. I was curious about this because it's going to roll into a discussion I've been noticing. I'm just very curious how people are playing battle regiments right now, or if they're playing them at all. And it seems like lower drops is the way to go, just based on all the GTs I've been looking at. There seems to be a trend of lower drops tend to perform better. Not strictly, right? Like Mrigank, your list there, we'll talk about it, had a lot of drops. No. But like it seems people are preferring the battle regiment right now. And I'm not sure that's necessarily the best choice. So it's like a long, ongoing discussion that I want to keep having.
Yeah. I'm still personally convinced of the fact that battle regiment, or going 1 or 2 drop is fine, but I still think getting more info is a little bit more valuable than deciding how the game goes based on the coin flip. But I mean, if that's your cup of tea, then I can't argue against it. So,
in Age of Sigmar 2.0, we could bring a lot more. Like we could bring stuff like 3 squads of Liberators, 2 squads of Aether Wings, easy. Every list could just fit that package in there. And in fact, you had to bring at least 3 squads of Liberators, right? So it felt like dealing with Alpha Strikes and with just denying space in general was a lot easier in 2nd edition, even though 3rd edition has smaller tables. Because there's just less stuff on the board, it feels like denying space and blocking charges is more difficult.
Yeah.
And I think if we were still in 2nd edition, I don't think people would be playing Battle Regiment, right? But because there's less stuff on the table, these Alpha Strike maneuvers are a lot more impactful. You can have a very impactful turn 1, and that'll just carry you, or just get the 2-3 double, right? Like if you force your opponent to go first, and then that can carry you to a victory. And I think that's what a lot of Drake lists are doing right now, right? Is that they're going for these 1-drops, they're overwhelming their opponent on turn 1, and then if people aren't answering it quick enough, well, 5 rounds, I get 5 VP, or 5 battle tactics, and then that's how you get max score with Drakes, right? It's just catching people off guard.
Yeah. So last thing I'll say about this is shout out to Level Up Games, shout out to Jake Seguin. Thanks for organizing that one. Looking forward to the next one, and I had a lot of time. I had a good time there meeting everybody. So have a good one.
Yeah, that's Level Up Games in Mississauga, Ontario, right?
Yep.
Cool.
All right, talking about what was next.
The Cherokee Open 2022,
Cherokee Open.
where our lad Mrigank went mad on everybody. Before we talk about your list in particular, because I feel like that's a bigger discussion, I wanted to just look at what else was in the top 8, because obviously we spoiled it and we said you went 5-0, you were in the top 8, but I just wanted to look at what else was up there. So all of these went at least 4-1, I believe. Could be wrong about that.
The Astral Templar, the one at the top, went 5-0. So
yeah, so there were 2 5-0s and then everybody else was 4-1. Okay. Which is fine, right? Nothing wrong with that. So the Stormcast Eternals, Astral Templars, Stormkeep. When you look at that, you're like, huh? What's going on there? But if you look at the list, it's Karazai, 3 units of Drakes, a Relictor, 2 units of Liberators. So it makes sense that with that setup, you don't need to deep strike anything. So you can just go Stormkeep. So the Liberators count as more models on objectives later. You don't care what they're doing. They're just filling out battle line in some cases.
Holding home objectives.
Holding objectives,
basically.
yeah. That's all they're doing. You need a unit to hold an objective. Here's a Stormkeep Liberator to do it. 15 models, right? And it's Astral Templars because you want to go Battle Regiment. You notice the numbers in red in parentheses. Those are the number of drops on each list. So this guy wanted to go Battle Regiment, 1 drop, and boom, there you go. Astral Templars, everything's immune to rampages, which means when you get charged by a cabbage, it can't stomp you, and then D6 move into your backline. It's also just useful for Karazai to make sure he doesn't get roared, so he can always all-out defense or always all-out attack. It's a very useful thing to have. And
actually, Titanic Duel.
Titanic Duel is good too. Yeah. People will use that against you. They'll charge in with 2 monsters. They will roar you with one of them and then duel with the other. Right, like support monsters are definitely a thing, right? Yeah. So this was a Drake list meant to counter other Drake lists.
Yes, also zombies, because Drakes get hard pitted by 120 zombies or whatever.
Yep. And Karazai is the general make Storm Drake's battle line, which means you can do the typical Storm Drake package, and instead of paying 300 points for I'm just going to say the Nitroconus isn't very good. Paying 300 points for a lackluster model or paying 600 for a very good model in particular matchups is great. I'm a little curious why he chose the Relictor. I'm not sure about... Is it
translocation for the Storm Drakes? Storm Drake hero phase move. So if you have a long deployment like the Vice, where the Storm Drake movement still isn't enough to get into their face, you can do it with the Relictor.
I thought it might be that. I thought it might be for extra mobility on the Liberators. After turn 3, you can steal enemy objectives.
Oh, sure. I mean, translocation is just period good for Stormcast, regardless.
I was just wondering if
5-inch moves aren't good.
Yeah. Depending on his approach, I thought maybe Gardas might be better, but then you're losing Astral Templars in that situation.
Yeah, from my experience at the local, doing the translocate then hero face move was the way to go.
And he can do that 3 different times, right? Because depending on where the Relictor is, but since he's got 3 units of 2 Storm Drakes, he didn't go all in on a single unit of 4. Doesn't have any spells, no one binding, right? So this list has, it would have had a lot of checks, but I guess he didn't run into them, right? Like I don't know how this list would have dealt with Nagash or all kinds of threats. Like how does this beat Be'lakor in Legion of the First Prince? I think it just gets tar pitted. I don't think it has any way to deal with it. Karazai would just get nuked down by Gift of Change and run 2 attacks, and they would get tar pitted.
Oh, you're talking about the Tzeentch list?
Yeah, well, not the Tzeentch list in particular, but let's say you're playing against Legion of the First Prince, which is like I would say just better than Tzeentch right now at doing the same thing.
Yeah, so I saw the Tzeentch game was actually, we'll just go to the Tzeentch. Like we don't have to go item by item. So I'll just quickly talk about the Tzeentch list. So it's your typical tar pit list, but instead of Legion of the First Prince, which is Kairos Be'lakor, a bunch of like a Demon Prince of Korn or whatever. This one was basically running Tzeentch with the Ogreoid and the Zangors for damage. He actually was pretty close against the Drakes. He actually had it. I think he made some mistakes that I think he admitted to us later that he made some mistakes that cost him the game. And there was the other list that I faced, the Motrek, the Marathi Gotrek one. That was very close to beating this list, the Astral Templar list. I think what that happened was that guy tunnel visioned on him achieving his grand strategy, which was hold a line, and for that he gave up points on the board, which ended up costing him the game by 2 points.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't focus on the grand strategy so much. It's better to win the game than it is to try to hold. It's better to win the game than to hold back resources and hope you get the grand strategy.
Right. So that's basically it. Interestingly enough, if you look at the Ida Deepkin list next, the Fuethan list, just absolute shooting the crap
It's
out
just
of
a
people.
shooting castle. Like it's an Ideneth shooting castle, which I've never.
Yeah, it's twos and twos. Twos on twos and
Yeah.
twos, rolling hit rolls of 1. And it just drowns you in shots. This list somehow lost to Ogres, round 1.
Ogres.
And that's the only reason he's 4-1.
Wait, the Ogre mod tribe that's on this list, or like just gluttons?
I don't know if the one on this list, but might be. But yeah, it was Kragnos, and there were lots of Ogre players there. People just running Stonehorns or like Kragnos and Stonehorns.
It's the Kragnos meta.
Yeah, Kragnos is popping up more and more, and yeah, for that matter, like I guess Kragnos is just really, really good now. Like I faced Kragnos twice myself at the event.
Yeah,
but the Deepkin is just it just shot the crap out of people. And if any of the leaks are anything to go by, there'll be even more of a shooting army next. They'll be slightly more elite, but even more shooting.
We'll see. We'll talk about it. It's on one of the slides. The Mrigank list, I've underlined some common pieces that you can see in all the lists here, but it was a Great Unclean one, 30 Plague Bearers, 5 squads of Beasts of Nurgle, like single squads, Bile Piper and Bellicor. So like a slow melee control list, right? So it's kind of like Legion of the First Prince, except you're not worried about your general dying and losing your 5-up ward, but you just have no shooting. Like this list has to just move up and tarp it.
Yeah, it's the typical Nurgle play. Tarp it everything. Geo has the thing where he stops commands from being issued. Bellicor to lock a key piece down.
Yeah,
not much to say. It just wins by what I really liked was that Bone Splitter list. Kragnos with a bunch of boar boys, and just speed is the name of this list because they get that pre-game move too. Mm-hmm. And so you just you're in their face turn 1 and you're doing mortal wounds on melee wound rolls of 6s.
Yeah, not just that, but like I actually looked through all the pieces that this guy put together, and this is brilliant. This is a fantastic list. So the Prophet has a spell that increases the rend of mount attacks by 2, which means your squad of 15 boar boys, all their pigs are now on 3/3 rend 2. Because I'm assuming you're going to get the +1 wound spell off, or sorry, you get +1/+1 if you charge, and then the rider gets +1 attack if you charge. And then you AoE the whole thing, and you add 2 to the rend of the mount attacks. But this list is deceptively fast because of the 3d6 charge from Kragnos. If you didn't have Kragnos in here, this list wouldn't work. Period. I don't think.
No,
I'm not a Bone Splitters player, but that's my impression. Because that extra d6 of movement is what you need to get in their face turn 1 reliably.
Well, also, the melee wound rolls of mortal wounds are good, but Bone Splitters don't have a hammer unit. Kragnos is the perfect hammer because the other troops are cheap as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So having lots of bodies that can suddenly move fast because of Kragnos, because of a 3d6 charge, and having that 18 wound model on a 2-up save with a 6-up ward, excellent addition to that army.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to point out that was really well done about this list, it all fit in a battle regiment, which is great, but the Maniac boss, he has the fast unmount trait, and I wanted to take special note of that because his spells are short range. Like the Bone Splitters have good spells, but they're short range. But if you take fast un, you can make a normal move in the hero phase, get in range of your spell, and then cast the really, really good spell that you want to get off. So that's a brilliant combo. I really like that because everybody's just using fast un right now like as a pseudo Mighty Destroyers, right? An extra move with your cabbage so you can charge in with them. Seeing it used in this way tactically to get a position in the hero phase, this is like Stormcast using Thunderbolt Volley to clear out screens. It's really intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another Kragnos list, but this time it's Cruel Boys, which is awesome as well. 3 Swamp Caller Shamans, a Vulture Killaboss, Kragnos, and then 18 Bolt Boys. So I
faced this one.
Yeah, so the anvils here are Kragnos and the Vulture. And the Vulture is both sneaky and mean, and all of them have the nasty hex. And this is actually one of the few times you ever see somebody take a spell enhancement because he's got 4 wizards. He took the Arcane Tome on the Vulture. And it's
designed to wreck Nurgle.
Yes.
Absolutely wrecks Nurgle.
So one of the best things about Cruel Boys right now, Bolt Boys are fine, right? Like they're outclassed by other shooting units, but if you're playing against an army that doesn't have very good shooting, like Nurgle or Tzeentch or these other armies, Bolt Boys are great, right? They're like not as good as Long Strikes, but they're still good. But what makes this list really good is the Vulture has sneaky and mean. So when he charges, his stomp does extra damage, but the sneaky lets him set up more than 9 inches away from an enemy. and then his hero phase, he can cast Nasty Hex, which means an enemy unit. Is it one enemy unit or all enemy units nearby? I think it's one enemy unit.
No. It's one within
12 inches
range
or something.
whatever.
But like that unit
12,
can't make ward rolls, and everybody's using ward rolls right now. So that just cuts the effective health of a lot of units by a lot. It's really, really good.
He also uses that to sometimes move Bolt Boys into position. Like if you deploy it really smartly, he'll just like suicide deploy a Bolt Boy somewhere in terrain of middle of the board to be like, okay, I'll go first and I'll wreck you.
Now the downside of this list, I think, is the too many heroes. So you have 4 drops, which is
he has no screens.
Yeah.
If other than Kragnos, there's no screens for the Bolt Boys.
Yeah.
So my Annihilator list was actually really well positioned into it.
Yeah, like he's got 3 Swamp Collas because he has 3 units. He has a 9, a 6, and a 3 of Bolt Boys. I was thinking maybe it's better to go 9-9 and then bring in cut one of the Shaman and then bring in, I don't know, some screens, some bodies that you can put in the way. I'm not a Cruel Boys player though. That's just what my instinct is telling me. But it's a very cool technical list that really only works again because of Kragnos, because he fits this piece of like a big anvil hammer that can just take a lot of damage and deal a lot of damage and present a big threat, and also give that Vulture a 3d6 charge the turn that he does the sneaky, right? So like it's just great.
Yeah, speaking of Kragnos, you want good chargers.
This is like
Boulderhead is where you put him.
This is like the no thinking list. Like I want to charge you. I'm gonna play Kragnos
like
and force stun. That's it.
It's like Ogre's trying to be Iron Jaws.
Yeah. It's great. It's a great list.
I mean, if you do Mortal Wounds like based on what your charge roll is, what better thing to do than make it a 3d6?
Yeah,
you could turn Annihilators into a 3d6.
You're saying I do an extra D3 mortals on the charge? Cool. I love it.
Yeah.
So I guess that'll lead into a conversation later. Like, what's going on with Kragnos? Is he okay? Is it okay for him to be this popular? He's in every list. Every destruction list has him now. Like, oh boy. All right. But let's talk about your list, Mrigank, because this is the third iteration that you've taken to GTs. So I want to talk about your choices on why you did it. I think if people haven't heard, I don't want to get into like the basics of this list. I feel like if people want to hear that, we've done enough podcasts about it. And also there's that AOS coach interview you did that really lays down the basics. So let's make this more focused on like the more detailed stuff. Why you picked the units you did. Like I'm very curious about Starfall here. Very, very curious about that.
Okay. So the main idea with this list, I dropped the Incanter because I thought Magic isn't as prevalent anymore. Whatever threats they're producing, we can either be in reserve or out of range.
Yeah, and you're right, because Kragnos can't cast spells.
Yeah, right. The main thing this list is going for are the Prosecutors, mainly because I was afraid of the Drake matchup, and Drakes unleash hell when you charge them with the Annihilator. So, and that's a big weakness of the Annihilator. Like, sure, you have Hunters of the Heartland to avoid stomps, but a Drake Breath will kill you.
Yep.
So having Prosecutors and with Javelins, because I want them to have some value. If they're going to die, might as well produce some value in shooting.
Could you explain how Prosecutors absorb Unleash Hell? I feel like somebody's going to ask that, because that's not intuitive.
Oh, sure. Here. So Unleash Hell only works if there are no other enemy units within 3. Prosecutors come down 9 inches away instead of 7 because they're not Thunderstrike, but they have a 3d6 charge, which means, especially with a command point, you are very likely to make that 9-inch charge. And once you do and engage the Drakes, they have to unleash hell on you, or when you charge them with your Annihilators afterwards, they won't be able to. So they have to waste it on the 115-point unit,
right?
Which is great because
this works really well because your Prosecutors are going to potentially use a command point to reroll, but the Annihilators don't need to do that. They have a native built-in reroll, so it's like even if you use that command on the Prosecutors, you're not worried about not having to use it on Annihilators later because Annihilators already reroll charges.
Yep. So it works out perfectly. I put the Javelins on them because with hammers, they're not going to shoot. And if they're going to die, I might as well get some value out of the 5 points. Just like bits of chip damage or something. I also use it to sometimes bait out an all-out defense on a dragon unit before I shoot another dragon unit.
Do people really like, I'm getting hit by Prosecutors, I'm going to all-out defense? Do people really do that?
They think I'm going to focus that dragon unit down and they'll pop it. That it has happened. Like not on a dragon because I didn't face dragons, but it did happen.
Wow. I guess, don't stop your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm like, cool, dude. My Knight-Judicator is still there. My Raptors is still there. This time, I switched out one Annihilator unit for Shield Annihilators, and we discussed previously how, Shield Annihilators just don't do enough damage.
The reason I went with this... the whole phase, though?
Right, but if they do it on another unit that I baited them out of, then I can just focus on another unit. So
of course,
I mean, it doesn't work against Iron Jaws, but against most other factions it does.
Yeah.
So the Shield Annihilators, my thought was, my experience over Austin LVO was basically that throughout the 10, 12 games or so, the first drop of Annihilators is always not that impactful. Like, whatever I'm putting them into, I'm always certainly overkilling it. And so, it didn't feel like I was getting value out of them. So I was like, why spend 240 points and 200 will do? And in my experience, it made the Gargant matchup a little bit weaker, but it wasn't. Gargants aren't that much of a threat anymore with Dragons and Iron Jaws and Kragnos ruling the meta. So like at the Cherokee Open, for instance, I think there were 2 Gargant players, and they just absolutely got pushed out.
Yeah, Kragnos. I don't know how Gargants would ever deal with Kragnos. They can't kill him, and he will kill them back.
Yep, absolutely. And so this take actually ended up being cool because a lot of the times that 2-up native save meant that I could charge Annihilators into something, kill that unit, and when the riposte happened, they actually had to put quite a few resources in trying to take that unit down.
Now, were you using all out defense to help mitigate that as well, or were you relying on all out attack to wipe out some screens or whatever?
Usually I was using all out defense on them just to make them last.
So it sounds like you're just using it to clear out screens, because I can't imagine the Shield Annihilators have enough damage to punch through anything that really matters.
Oh no, yeah, I'm not using it to engage.
You're setting up your turns 2 and 3.
I'm not using it to engage like a Maw Crush or anything, but like against like Direwolves, against like a unit of pigs, they get their value back. They're completely fine if you're trying to engage them. And yeah, the rest of the list is as it is. My grand strategy changed to Dominating Presence. I realized that when I was winning games, it's not a good idea to try and keep things alive. Like if they know that you're trying to keep your priest alive or your heroes alive or something, they'll try and target them down to deny you 3 points. The best thing you can do is Dominating Presence, because when you're winning, if you're winning decisively, you'll have Raptors alive, you might have the Liberators alive, you'll have some heroes alive, and just having them near a terrain piece and saying, okay, at the end of the game, I control terrain piece, I win. I get my grand strategy. It's not something people actively try to deny you, whereas they will try to kill key pieces to try and deny you that grand strategy. Especially since shooting is so prevalent.
Yeah, that's.
And then sorry, did you have a question? You had a question?
I had 2 things I wanted to talk about since we're on the topic of grand strategy, because I've been thinking about this lately. I'm going to a GT next weekend where it's a significant tiebreaker, so I've been putting a lot of thought into it. I've basically discounted them for most of Age of Sigmar 3rd edition because I feel like spending resources to try to save a grand strategy for any reason, right, is just foolish unless the event specifically makes it very significant. But I like this idea of Dominating Presence because I'm not ever worried about something dying. Like I'm gonna just Dominating Presence to me seems like I'm going to play the game that Stormcast are meant to play the game. Just overwhelmingly destroy your opponent. Take the fights you want to take. Take the lose the units you want to lose. Don't give your opponent the choice of denying you out of spite, right? Like, because I'm sure you'll run into a game where somebody's going to be a bad sport and like, oh, you're trying to get Pillars of Faith, and I'm just going to snipe your Relictor even though I'm losing the game just because I can.
Right, but sometimes it's like it matters because it's like if you're losing by, let's say, a really close margin, if it's really tight, and I can see my opponent's going to get 3 points because they have hold the line, I'll try and kill their battle line, especially if I have range projection in my army, because that's very important. Like if you have range projection, then you don't have to like commit to a certain location in order to do what you want. So if I it's say bottom of round 5, it's neck and neck, 22 to 23, and I know I can get 3 points, I'm denying my opponent 3 points by killing off whatever the last bits of battle line are, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how much the grand strategy is worth overall. Different events do different weightings on it, right? Like if it's just like 2 points if you get it, or 3 victory points, or like the event I'm going to is worth 5 battle points or whatever, like after the game's over. Whereas winning the game itself is 25. So potentially 1/6 of my total score at the end of the event is going to be just from doing a grand strategy.
So going to my games with this, I faced first match was against Iron Jaws with Kragnos on First Blood. The strategy basically remained the same as before in fighting Iron Jaws, and for those of you who don't know, we have a great video on how to beat Iron Jaws. I suggest you go watch it. I destroyed all of his pigs. Thunderbolt volley into the pigs, shooting into the pigs.
Nice.
Shield Annihilators land into the pigs. Kill all of his pigs. He had a Maw Crusher and Kragnos alive.
And how many objectives are on that scenario?
3. 3. And that Maw Crusher isn't going to live. No. Because my Grand Hammer still have to land. So the game was pretty much decided there. He could only be on one place at a time with Kragnos. And it basically went to turn 5 because he tried to basically chase my units across the board as I kept translocating them and trying to achieve other battle tactics. At the last turn, he managed to deny my grand tactic, which is bring down Kragnos. I brought Kragnos down to 1 wound, but I couldn't kill him. And that was the game. I got 4 battle tactics out of 5. My next match ended up being against Soulblight Gravelords. It was a mix of a bunch of Hero Hammer, basically. It was Radukar, Belladama, Vengorian Lord, unit of Blood Knights, a bunch of Dire Wolves, some skeletons. And this was a standard match as it goes. I destroyed the Vengorian Lord with Thunderbolt Volley. And after that, just kept dropping Annihilators and kept dealing with the heroes one by one. And he never really had any superb amounts of range projection. This is where a Knight-Judicator could have helped because he kept trying to turn one of my raptors into a wolf, so he could just keep it engaged. But it never caused problems because I just used that heroic action, heroic willpower, to either try and unbind their spell with a Knight-Judicator. My Lord Reliquary can also unbind one of their spells, or I had the Imperatant. And I had the Imperatant and a unit of Liberators really close. So if he did manage to turn a raptor into a wolf, I would just fight it and kill it, so it wouldn't be a problem with my turn. So that was pretty standard.
Quick question: does the wolf have the same kind of language? Does that spell have the same kind of language as Gift of Change? Because I think we've discussed this before, where if one of your raptors dies and you have a unit of Gryph-hounds nearby from the Knight-Judicator, then you can actually shoot with the raptor that just died into the chain or the curse chaos spot.
Right. I think we asked the judge. They said no to that.
Okay. Well, it's not the way it's written, but okay, sure.
Because technically, because Gryph-hound says if you do a reserve or a summon, it's technically not a summon, he said.
Any unit that joins your army after it starts is a summon. That's how it's defined.
Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe we played that.
It's fine. TOs can say whatever they want, right? But I'm curious about it. I'm curious about rules. You know me.
Next was I faced that 18 Bolt Boy list with Cruel Boys. That's that came 4th. Sorry, that came 7th or something.
Let me guess. Ended up your Longstrike shot their Bolt Boys.
Yes, he basically deployed both of them in mud. He got one in mud, so I couldn't shoot them. But all I had to do is Prosecutor charge, Annihilator charge. That unit is done for. And this match, I actually managed to take down Kragnos because I got really lucky with the Annihilators. What happened was I dropped down, did 3 mortal wounds. Then I rolled in 11 on the charge and did 8 mortal wounds. And then he had 7 wounds left. And I had already done 6 mortal wounds to him with long strikes. And then I just had to get lucky with 1 miss save and he was dead.
Right. So, how were you finding Grain Hammers against Kragnos' 2-up save? Do you find AOD plus Finest Hour to be a big problem?
If you're trying to engage him on 18 wounds, it's not going to kill him. But if you're trying to engage Kragnos on 6 or 8 wounds, you have a chance at killing him pretty reliably.
I guess
Annihilators are great.
I guess if he's going to save stack so high that your Ren 2 doesn't matter, then Grand Hammers aren't that much better than Shield Annihilators, because most of the damage you're going to do to Kragnos would just be through the mortal wounds on impact and charge.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, people who play Kragnos tend to play him really aggressively, so after a while he just gets out of Mystic Shield or save stack range. The rest of the army is really slow. They're not charging. Support heroes aren't charging anywhere. So there'll come a time when Kragnos is alone and all he has is his 2-up and all out defense, possibly. Which you're still putting him through a 3-up save. Against 9 or 10 shots, they might miss 2 or 3, plus the mortal wounds. That's a good bit of damage.
So you're just hoping he rolls 1s. You're just...
Yeah. I mean, there was nothing else left for me to kill. I basically killed his entire army. There's no way he could win that, because with the 3 objectives in the center, because it was tectonic interference. So this match was decided once the Bolt Boys died.
This is what I'm talking about. Just there's not a lot of units on the table anymore, right? When your army is 2 monsters, 3 heroes, and 3 units, you're just giving up the board if somebody takes out 1 or 2 of your units. It's crazy.
Wow, I'm getting a phone call that I'll have to attend because it's important. Wow. Okay, I'll just try to quickly finish this. Round 4 was Power Struggle, and I faced another Cruel Boy list. This one was a unit of 9 Bolt Boys, 2 units of 9 Bolt Boys, a unit of Gut Rippers. He allied in 40 shooters, 2 units of 20 from Gits as screens chaff, basically, and then a unit of Hobgrass Slitters and the Sludge Rake monster and the Troll Proggoth monster. This was on Power Struggle, so there were 5 objectives.
Oh, of course, right. You get the Horde list on a mass objective.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to criticize him, but I think his play was weird. He didn't try and protect his guys with shooter guys with covered in mud. He didn't try to form like a turret in the center. Um, I basically deployed all my important things in the sky, even the raptors, and just like over the course of two to three turns, I basically just killed him,
Just picked
killed
him
all his
apart.
important things. Yeah, picked him apart, and he made some mistakes because in positioning, and I'm not going to go too much into the weeds, but he basically forgot that I had Thunderbolt Volley. He kept thinking I would bank it for like killing a hero or something. I used it to delete the Gut Ripper screen, land my Annihilators, do a whole bunch of mortal wounds across the army, charge in, delete his Troggeth, and from then on he had nothing left that could like realistically kill me. Like he'd kill the Annihilators, but then I would just land the last one, and kill his bolt boys with the Prosecutors, because I kept Prosecutors in the sky till turn 3.
How good are those Prosecutors in this list, man? They're so good.
They're so good. Oh man, even just the harassing shooting damage, the fact that my opponent knows that something can land in his backfield and hit a support hero, it's enough to keep them on their guard. Like people are just screening all the way out in their backfield.
Yeah.
No, I love that Prosecutor unit. My God, I can't believe I didn't take one tail Leo.
You just got lucky, I guess.
Yeah, I got really lucky. I got lucky here. Didn't face dragons, and I think okay. I'm not gonna say I'm submarining, but it's like my list ideally cannot score as much as the monster list, because I'm never gonna score those extra points. And that's just a consequence of my list building. So the way the pairing works, I'm never gonna get matched up against those high scoring lists. So in a sense, I can always kind of avoid the dragon matchup.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's I don't. It's a bigger discussion about, but I just don't like using the actual score of the game as the score for the event, right? Like I prefer a win is a win. Like you win by 15 points or you win by 1 point, it doesn't matter. That's a win, right? Because it's supposed to be about this overall strategy, not about how quickly you kill your opponent so you can max out your score. So, but anyway, that's a whole thing. So your final match.
Another thing. Final match was against Motrek, Marathi Gotrek, Melusai Iron Scale, 10 Mo Snakes, 2 units of 5 Blood Sisters, melee snakes.
I'm very curious how this goes, because Gotrek seems like the kind of thing you would never kill with your list.
Never. I just avoided him. He deployed it. It was Feral Foray, so it was 6 objectives, which is in my favor because
I would say so.
You know, yeah, we're both highly elite. Turn 1, he uses Melusai Iron Scale to give Marathi the run and 2d6 run and charge, because she has the keyword. She runs 11 plus 14, 25, moves 25 inches up the board, then failed her charge against my Liberators, rolls a 4 into a 4.
Oh my god. Dice game.
we need to get those printed, Paul.
Yeah.
Rip. I was like, rip. I was dying inside just laughing at that. I was like, oh my god.
And just
so
for the sake of, added comedy, how many of your charges did you make? How many of your 7-inch charges did you make?
13 out of 15.
Yeah. Just salt in the. Oh man. Look, how big of a deal would it have been if Marathi charged you?
Big, because I mean, yes and no. Like the only thing that she had the objective anyway, because I just had like she basically used Shadow Dance to move both Mini and Big Marathi there, so she had the objective in my Fire Liberators. The only difference is made it like I was hoping she would charge it, because I would unleash Hell from my Knight-Judicator and try and deal 3 wounds to Marathi.
Yeah, on her turn.
Yeah, which is important, because the only way Stormcast can deal wounds to them in their turn usually is by splitting on them with Blaze of Glory. So that would have been important, but so in my turn, I basically landed my Raptors, cleared his Bow Snakes off the board, straight up, dealt 3 wounds to Marathi with the Knight-Judicator, landed my Shield Annihilators in the corner, which against his Blood Sisters, killed them on the charge. There was nothing he could do. I get the double. I get another 3 wounds into Marathi, finish off his Blood Sisters to the left. Literally, the only thing he has left alive now are Marathi, the Big Marathi, Little Marathi, and Gotrek.
Yeah, that's not getting those 6 objectives. That's for sure.
Yeah, no. And he was Keltnar, which is the he summons like 5 Kitterai.
Oh, that's not the teleport one.
No. And he was afraid of my Gryphon, so he like summoned it away from them. But then like he charged my Raptors, and I was within 12 of the Aether Wings because I moved him to the right, and so he ate a Unleash Hell from like 6 Raptors on 3s. I'm like, there's no way he's gonna make that. So ouch. I was like, okay, and then he called it turn 3. I think he was like turn 4. He was like, okay, that's game.
Thor's comment in the chat. It's pretty amazing when your army does everything that every other army does better. LOL. Yeah, I mean that's what Stormcast are. We're like your army, but more sophisticated, stronger, better, faster.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a favorable matchup for me because my positioning tools are kind of superior than hers. I mean, she can basically teleport Marathi every turn, but the rest, like what is Gotrek gonna do? Like he can't really even protect an objective because if I just land Annihilator 7 inches away and I don't charge them, they hold the objective over him.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so,
He's 2 models and you're 3. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like this match is. It was favorable for me. There was some paths to victories he had, but it's like, and if Marathi's gonna die, she's gonna die. And which hilariously, as I shifted to the right side of the board, he basically put Mini Marathi and Big Marathi towards that side of the board. He charged my Aether Wings with Mini Marathi, charges the Kinnerai into my Raptors, which die on Unleash Shell. He kills the Aether Wings with Mini Marathi, and I deal 3 wounds with Blaze of Glory.
Hand grenade pigeons. Yes. Fantastic.
So, when it was my turn next, I basically killed Marathi because she was on the last remaining 3 wounds. So that was, yeah.
I think that's the first shirt we make. It's an Aether Wing with a hand grenade in its mouth. And just blaze of glory.
I'll ask
yeah,
Jade,
that was my
5-0.
That was my 5-0 experience.
Congratulations. I wanted to ask you about your specific choices on enhancements in here. Starfall. Tell me about why you picked Starfall.
Starfall. So I was afraid of horde armies and specifically zombies. I wanted somewhere where I could.
Are you a little scarred after LVO?
Yeah, like not just like zombies, but like maybe like even Hearthguard or anything that can fight first, anything that can pile into me like from the side. Having Starfall sometimes where you can just be like, okay, these 2 units in the front aren't going to pile in, and I'm going to put Annihilators right in the corner of your unit, kill them, and then nothing will hit me back. Having that extra turn with them where I can then say, okay, I'm going to all-out defense my Annihilators on a 2-up save. Let's see if you can kill them. Is pretty huge.
Yeah, I think Starfall, if Drakes didn't have a 4+ immunity to spells, Starfall would be really good against them. But Starfall I could see being really good against Fulminators. If you can Thunderbolt Volley to kill an Incanter, and then Relictor translocates himself up, cast Starfall pretty reliably with Master of Magic. You're putting all your dice in this bucket, but I could see that being useful. Like Shield Annihilators could pin Fulminators for 2 turns on a 3-up. Oh,
yeah. So yeah, overall it was a great experience, great armies. I mean, I avoided the Drake matchup, which would have been it would have been a slightly uphill battle, but I think I had the tools to win that match.
Yeah, I think so with this list in particular, because you could put the Knight-Judicator pretty close up front, and with his Mirror Shield, he's just can't be shot unless they get past your Aether Wings and your Liberators there. I could see that matchup going well for you.
But so looking forward to the next GT with this one. I'll let the chat know later on what's going on in my life, but I'm actually getting a call from the local PD, so I will talk to you guys later about that.
We'll see you. Do you want to take the call now, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have 3 missed calls, so I need to quickly.
Okay, you call the cops and jump back into the call whenever you're done. James and I are going to talk about the changing metagame of AOS.
All right, cool.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Man's is too good, so the cops are at his door.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. You're winning too many tournaments. FBI, open up. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 3.1 meta. So the 3.1 refers to the December 2021 Battle Scroll, where we saw new War Scrolls for Nagash, Archaon, Kragnos, and very slight changes in point cost to Lumineth and to Daughters of Cain, among other things. And what we're seeing right now, I think it's been 2 months at least, and I think we can start making some conclusions about where we're heading, what we're doing. And I just have some quick notes here to use as jumping off points. The first thing is, why hasn't Living Cities been nerfed yet? Like, I don't understand why they're allowing this to go on. This is very confusing. If Living Cities is allowed to teleport in Fulminators more than 3 inches away, basically, and get charges like that, can we just have translocation movement back? That'd be cool. Like the cities of Sigmar win rate is phenomenal right now. And I always say the stats, we have low sample sizes in Age of Sigmar in general, and player skill is a huge determinant. But when you see like 65% win rate you got to think something's going on there. And that's Cities of Sigmar as a whole. That's every sub-faction in Cities of Sigmar. So like all of the Living City lists, along with all of the like Settlers Gain lists that are going 0-5 out there, right? I mean, if you're doing well with Settlers Gain, more power to you. But I'm not seeing it personally. So it's just wild that Living Cities is still doing this. It makes me think that if they haven't done it yet, if they haven't made any change yet, then it's going to have to wait until the battle scroll comes out, which could be anytime in March. If they're doing them every 3 months like they're doing in 40k, then we could be looking down an update in 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, something like that. I really hope they don't make us wait until the General's Handbook this summer. That I don't want to deal with another 3 months of this. This is going to be just awful, and it's only going to get more popular. The longer it goes on, the more of the metagame is going to turn into living cities, which is not fun to play against. But maybe I'm biased, right? Stormcast have trouble playing against it, and that's probably why I don't like it so much. But it's not fun to play against as Seraphon or Fire Slayers either, so nothing's fun to play with Fire Slayers now. But those new War Scrolls are just bad, unfortunately. So yeah, waiting on the Living Cities nerf. I don't think it's a good time to invest in that army. I feel like it's going to get nerfed. But when it does, people can swap over to Tempestai with more or less the same list and do more or less the same thing. So it's not going to change much. How was your experience with Living Cities? Did it feel like way too difficult to play against strategically, or do you think if you had more experience, you'd be able to counter it?
I think I had a chance against it, quite frankly. Again, we were both playing reserved. We both knew what we were doing at the end of the day, and we were just waiting for one person to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bevan, shout out in the chat. How you doing, buddy? Strike and melt away ability is broken. Yeah, well, it's too strong on Stormcast units, right? Like,
it brings the argument of if that's allowed, then why don't we have for translocation, right?
Yeah, I think it's fine for every single unit in the Cities of Sigmar Battle Tome, and for every single Sylvaneth unit. But like, they updated the Stormcast Battle Tome, and now we have really, really good units that can take advantage of it, and that ability's power just goes through the roof. It's like if they updated Sylvaneth, and suddenly Kurnoth Hunters were just doing tremendous amounts of damage with a shooting attack. Like if they could use it, it'd be the same problem, right? Like the power of that ability is just what units could use it. So as long as good Stormcast units exist that can take advantage of that ability is going to be broken. Just how it's designed. It's hard to play around it, not intuitive, and I don't want to see what the game's going to look like if we have to wait a long time for it to get changed. Like with Nagash using Emerald Host, like they nerfed that really quickly. They had one event where Nagash was maybe allowed to use his Hexwraith bodyguards, and then they just stealth nerfed it. You go on the website and it's just, there's an errata for it. They never announced it. They never said they were doing anything. It's just there. And I thought Living Cities was going to see the same thing. But waiting on that, I guess.
The other thing about Strike and Melt Away, and we've talked about it, is, and this makes it, quite honestly, it still makes Stormcast better, even if we had the previous translocation, is the fact that you can't redeploy out of it.
Yeah, because it happens in the shooting phase, which is just really gross. Yep. There's just so many good things about it. So few downsides, so little costs, all benefit. I guess the one saving grace is that as long as Tooth and Nail exists and people keep using it in their tournament packs, that's something holding Living City back. I don't
Shout out Torchlight.
Oh my god! I'm going to 2 events in April, and both of them have Tooth and Nail in the battle pack. It's not going to be fun. Yeah, the next thing I wanted to talk about is Kragnos undercosted. I remember back when we did the Battle Scroll live stream, we said he's got these fantastic new rules, and they left his points the same. So he's still 700 points, but he does like 3 times as much stuff. It's kind of crazy that they kept his points the same. Maybe it's a situation of like, yeah, let's make a radical change to this model and then just see what happens, and maybe we'll release new points. They updated Archaon and Nagash's points when they gave him new War Scrolls, where Kragnos just stayed there. So the cynic in me thinks they didn't sell enough Kragnos models because his old War Scroll had garbage abilities like +1 Bravery for destruction units. Cool. And real winners like you can reroll hits against dragons.
Neat.
Would have been a great ability now, actually, but they had to get rid of that because dragons need to be good as well. So, yeah, Jace, Kragnos could go up 60 points and it wouldn't make a difference to a lot of lists. He's on par with what Archaon and Nagash were doing before they got new War Scrolls. Like he's one of these like 800, 900 point models that has a huge impact on the game. For his points, he doesn't do the most damage, but just the whole package is really, really good. So I'm not sure. I don't want to say yes, Kragnos is undercosted. It just it feels that way, and we'll see. I'm going to be talking to a lot of destruction players in the next couple weeks, and I'll be talking to them about their thoughts on it. I like that it's opening up new build opportunities. I like that factions like Gits, Bone Splitters, Cruel Boys that wouldn't have seen play without Kragnos are now suddenly a serious contender. But on the other hand,
Gits are going around winning GTs right now, quite frankly.
Yeah, Gits are doing fine. Well, when you have mad lads like Gavin behind them, they're doing fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel. Like, if I play 5 destruction games against 5 different allegiances and all of them have Kragnos, that might be a sign to me that he is undercosted. Because if he's just replacing every good thing in your army, then it's probably not a good thing, right? Like, people want to play ogres. They don't want to play Kragnos featuring ogres. I hope. Maybe some people do. Let's talk about the fact that it seems like lists are starting to adapt to the Stormdrake meta and to the Kragnos meta. Like, really expensive units that pay... they're not efficient, right? In terms of how many points you spend, you're not getting like the best ratio of points for wounds. You're not getting the best ratio of damage per point. But you're doing fine because you're playing against other things that are like that. So, for example, if you're playing 6 Longstrikes are really, really good against killing a Maw Crusher every turn. And a Maw Crusher is 480 points, right? But if 6 Longstrikes have to shoot into 60 zombies, which are not that expensive, they're not going to kill the zombies, and you're not going to accomplish a lot. So this elite versus elite kind of meta that we're in right now, I think is starting to fade. People are starting to notice it. And especially when you look at the new stuff that's coming, like Fire Slayers, Ideneth, Night Haunt, Daughters of Cain, those are all infantry-focused armies, right? If just for example, 30 Volkite Berserkers, they are 60 wounds on a 4-up save. They're troops, so they can have Hunters of the Heartland, so they can't be roared. They can always all-out defense. They can get a Mystic Shield from an Arcane Tome Master Magic General. They can, I'm sure there's all kinds of other stacking stuff, but they can also get a 5-up ward once per game from a Battlesmith. So we're looking at 90 effective wounds on a 3-up ignoring Rend 1. How the heck are Stormcast going to kill that? Like, how are you going to do 90 damage? Not even Fulminators do that much. A squad of 4 Fulminators cannot kill 30 Volkite Berserkers. It's intense. It's really, really intense. So I think people are going to adapt. Like, once your charge doesn't burst down the enemy, you can actually play more strategic games. And that's not good for Stormcast because we rely on blowing up the enemy, right? Our plan is trade down, right? We are going to trade you all the way to victory. And when you're not killing them and you're stuck in place, you're not holding objectives, you're just losing on body count. Has Finn doing okay?
Yep. Stormkeep bingo.
Yeah, I think Stormcast can adapt to that kind of meta. So, like, the kind of meta I'm envisioning where we're going is like lots more infantry. Instead of facing 8 dragons, you're going to face 100 models. Like, not the same counts that we had in 2nd edition, but you are going to face a lot more models than you are right now. And the Stormcast book has a lot of stuff to deal with that, right? Evocators are really good at dealing just a lot of damage. They're not really the most efficient source of damage, but they're fine. Dracoths do really well in that sort of meta because Fulminators are just damage pumpers, right? Like, they'll just do 50 damage per turn on their own, which is crazy. Stormdrakes are good as a utility piece in that kind of setup and as an anvil, but not as a damage dealer, which is more interesting. Crossbow Judicators, I think, are going to rise to the top because when you need to deal 30 damage per shooting phase reliably, long strikes aren't going to do it, but Crossbow Judicators would. I'm saying, like, damage after saves, right? Like, or before saves, I should say. Crossbow Judicators are, I think, going to be more useful going forward. Sequitors might start seeing play. Lord Exorcist might start seeing play if we see lots of armies like Fire Slayers where they rally back on a 4-up, and we could just deny that. You can say, no, you just can't. Sorry. You cannot rally that unit. That's a really powerful tool. So with the right point changes, I think Stormcast could be radically shifted in play style, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I feel like Drakes are just going to go away. It's hard to talk to you when your cat's crawling up over you, man.
Yep. All right, he's gone.
Like what Mrigank was saying, he dropped the Knight-Judicator and it didn't really hinder him. And I think that's because reliable magic lists are going away.
Yeah.
And that's purely because of Storm Drakes, right? The Storm Drakes body magic lists so hard, right? Gift of Change does almost nothing to them. Comet's Call from a Slan does almost nothing. You can't Lambent Light them with the Lumineth to get the rerollable hits. It's just rough. Magic just can't get through Storm Drakes. They have too many wounds to reliably kill the spells. Even if they didn't have the 4-up ignore, it's pretty bad. So Knight-Judicator, still a very strong unit, but if people aren't using like the one big spell per turn that their whole list is relying on, then we don't have to use the Knight-Judicator. We can spend the points on something else. And Mrigank, for example, spent those points on Prosecutors, which won him multiple matches. Which you could argue maybe a Knight-Judicator would have helped too, but doesn't do much against Ironjaws or Kragnos. Yeah, so let's talk about Fire Slayers for a little bit here. On Warhammer Community, it was revealed that they have a Fight First ability. This is the first Fight First ability we've seen in 3rd edition. And how that works is it's usually activated at the start of the combat phase. That unit does its attacks, and then the normal combat phase happens. So typically what we saw in 2nd edition was people would charge in with a Fight First unit and then charge in with a 2nd unit. The Fight First unit would attack, and then because it's your turn, you pick the first unit to attack, so you fight with your 2nd unit. That's not something Stormcast can do. And fighting with 2 units also gives you extra pile-ins, right? Because if the first unit can fight and kill the screen, the 2nd unit can pile in past the screen and hit stuff that's important. So it's a very useful strategic ability. But the Fire Slayer version of Fight First is probably the worst version of Fight First they've ever put in the game. It has all kinds of limitations on it. It is a command, so you can stop it with Roar. It costs a command point. It is something you have to issue at the start of the combat phase to that unit, right? So if the unit can't receive or if a unit nearby can't get commands, then you can't do it. There's just all kinds of restrictions on it. I think the biggest one, though, and the one I wanted to talk about, is that you cannot issue that command if there is a unit within 3 inches of you that did not charge. So this is meant to be purely a defensive ability, right? If you charge with your Hearthguard on your turn, you hit a unit that did not charge, you cannot activate the command ability. So if you get charged, though, if somebody's coming to you, obviously you can fight first in that situation. But if you're stuck in a long combat, you can't. And Stormcast have some tools to play around this. One of the things we can do, for example, is we can use the mount trait Celestial. Is it Celestial Instincts? No, it's the first mount trait in the table there, but it lets you have a 6-inch pile-in. And if you make a 6-inch pile-in, like if you just pile into combat, you don't make a charge roll, you just pile into it, then the Fire Slayers can't activate their command to fight first. And I think that's one of the ways we get around that. Depending on how useful Fire Slayers are, I don't see them, from the previews we've gotten so far, I don't see them being a huge threat. Hopefully I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, because I really like Fire Slayers. But depending on how prevalent they are, we might start including Lord Arcanum on Dracoth. Yep, Aetheric Swiftness, there it is from Jace. Yeah, we might start using a Lord Celestin on Dracoth with Aetheric Swiftness just to counter that particular ability. That's an option that we have. We can't include niche units to counter everything, right? Like, it would be nice to have a Lord Exorcist every time you play against Fire Slayers with their 4-up rally, but if that Lord Exorcist isn't doing anything in every other matchup, then it's not worth the points, even if it's really good in one matchup. So I think Fire Slayers fighting first was a big deal in 2nd edition. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal in 3rd edition. Not against Stormcast, because you can just you just shoot them. You can just shoot them. And if their shooting range stays at 18 inches, they'll have like their deep strike shooting probably with their rune smiter, but otherwise they don't have very good long range threat projection. So they're an anti-melee shooting army. Let's put it this way: they're the anti-melee army, right? So they're really good when they're fighting against Ironjaws. They're really good when they're fighting against Idoneth, probably. They just can't deal with other shooting armies. It's like how Cruel Boys with their Bolt Boys, they can't deal with other shooting armies because they just get outranged. They have to rely on hiding in the mud. Yeah, Fire Slayers are going to be like that, except they don't get to hide in the mud. It's going to be rough. I don't. Well, we'll get there. And then Idoneth are looking way better than Fire Slayers right now. I'd say Idoneth are in a really good spot. All the previews, it seems like they're keeping their Tides mechanic. So on turn 1, they'll be in cover. On turn 2, they'll run and charge or run and shoot. Turn 3, they all fight first. Turn 4, they retreat and shoot or retreat and charge. And then turn 5, you do it all again, starting on low tide. Really, really powerful ability in 2nd edition. It eventually got power crept, but it seems like 3rd edition is kind of a reset, and it's going to be very strong for sure. Don't want to get too much into like rumors and leaks and whatnot. Just want to go off the Warhammer community articles. They look good. The stats that we saw in Fury the Deep are good. They're efficient. As long as they don't completely neuter their stats or their points, Idoneth are going to be a strong army. Yeah. Not looking forward to playing against them. James, have you had any games against Idoneth yet? They have
Nope.
They have this obnoxious game mechanic where if they're not the closest unit to your unit, you can't shoot them. So they can put any garbage unit in the way, and it blocks line of sight for everything behind them. Like in every direction. So like you have a unit here and a unit here. Everything around this area behind this unit in like a cone, or like just a huge space behind them just can't be shot. So you can keep your really fragile melee hammer units right behind your super durable shield eels, which have like a 3-up save that can't be rended. It's really, really, really annoying. Yeah, hopefully they don't keep that mechanic, but we'll see. So that's where the 3.1 meta is at right now. It seems like people are using Kragnos a lot. We're in a monster meta still, I would say, but it's a different monster meta than what we had before. Instead of Nagash and Archaon and 5-up ward cabbages, we're dealing with Kragnos and Stormdrakes and just teleporting shenanigans with Stormcast and with Living Cities. So it's kind of the same. Like it's a different flavor of the same kind of food, right? It's not that different. But I think it's changing. I think we're starting to see people adapt to it. We spoke with Levon a few weeks ago. He used this 120 zombies to great success because if your Stormdrakes don't kill what they're charging, they're just stuck in a bad fight. They're not a good unit suddenly. So I think we're trending towards that sort of thing. We're able to bring units that can absorb these like 30 damage charging units, right? Like 10 Grand Hammers are really, really good when they're fighting 10 to 20 wounds of something. But if they fight 50 to 60 wounds, they're not looking very good at all suddenly.
So last night in the painting table, that was a discussion that we had with or just together, a couple of us. Somebody had asked, do you think a pricing, or do you think Fulminators are going to see a nerf anytime soon? And this is probably the main reason why I'm seeing that a nerf probably won't happen to Fulminators in terms of like losing their charge or anything like that, or a points increase. Is mainly because it seems like they're starting to come up with solutions to counter Fulminators and what we have in our arsenal.
Fulminators aren't a problem in Stormcast lists. Nobody is really complaining about them. Like, yeah, they do really good damage, and it's like higher damage than what their points would suggest they do. But every army kind of has something like that, right? Like, maybe not every army, but every army has really good melee damage units. Dracoths aren't super fast. They're 10-inch move, which is, it's not easy to play around, but it's not hard either. Like you and I have done test games where, one of us will have Dracoths and the other person will just deploy in a corner. It's like, well, what do you do? The Dracoths aren't getting anywhere. They're not charging turn 1. They're left in the middle. They can still die. They're only 6 wounds apiece on a 3-up save. Like, that's not impossible to kill. They're not heroes. They can't heal back. I mean, you rally back Fulminators, that's a different game. That sucks. but Fulminators I don't think are broken. The issue I think people have with Fulminators is that they're like 10 points more than a unit that does way less damage, like Concussors. And they're 10 points less than Grand Hammers, which, again, Fulminators do more, they're faster, so it seems like they should cost more points. It's like an internal balance problem, not an external one. 9-inch charge. You guys keep making those damn Scions charges against me with Fulminators. Fulminators seem right at 230. If they were to increase the cost of Fulminators, first off, I'd like to see Living Cities just not be able to use Strike and Melt away on Stormcast units, and that would fix most of the problems people have with Fulminators. But if you did, let's say, increase their cost by 10 or 20 points, I would like to see Stormcast heroes go down in price, so that Stormcast lists using Fulminators are about the same. But if you're spamming Fulminators because they're the most efficient option, or trying to find some abuse of them, that would take a hit. I don't see anybody spamming Fulminators to great success. Like, you don't see like 5 squads of 2 Fulminators tearing up events. It's always like a single squad of 4, maybe 2 squads of 2. Like, going more than that in a list, you end up skewing too heavily in a unit that's not very fast and not very shooty and not particularly durable, right? Like, it's okay at all of those things, but it's not good enough that it's going to make like a huge difference. So I would see, if Fulminators go up, other stuff has to come down, because I don't think lists using Fulminators are broken. And you have to consider the list as a whole, right? The faction as a whole, not just individual units compared across each other, because the game is a lot more complicated than just comparing spreadsheet data cells across the board. It's not just about efficiency.
Yeah, I agree. But there are people who still look at individual units and see how well they perform, and they think, oh, well, that's not fair.
Just tell them pigs. Like, look at pigs. They're 170. They do way more damage than 170 points ought to do. And
no, but pigs are okay though. Pigs are okay.
Yeah, right. Like, and that's fine. It's fine for units to be strong. It's fine for units to be impactful. It's fine for units to punch above their weight, right? Like, do more damage than what their points suggest. Because that's fine. Because to counter those units, you should use cheap disposable screens, right? That's the counter to that, and then you hit them with something harder. Yeah, that's where I'm going to land on that. I don't think Fulminators need a nerf.
No,
but we'll see. Maybe they will overcorrect for problems they saw 3 months ago. They've done that before. You didn't play in 2nd edition, but Sequitors and Evocators were nerfed like 6 months after the new box came out. Sequitors and Evocators were doing really well for like 2 months, but then other armies started coming out and people just adapted to them. And when the nerfs came out 6 months later, people were like, why? We've already figured out this unit. They're not worth the points that people are spending on them now. Why would you make them even weaker? So I don't want to see that happen with Fulminators and Long Strikes.
Fair.
All right, so I would like to close off the stream by announcing that our next painting contest starts right now. The subject this time is going to be a Knight-Judicator with Gryph-hounds, and entries are open from right when you're hearing this message until March 27th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Because we had such a great turnout for the Annihilator painting contest, I think we got like 40 submissions. Wild. Because we had such a great turnout, we've been able to increase the prize pool for this one. So we're going to be offering prizes for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Because we kind of had to put this together a little last minute. We haven't ironed out what those prizes are going to be exactly, but we will be offering you guys fairly good prizes, I think. So if you want to participate, feel free to check the video description. What do YouTubers usually do? Down below. I'm not good at this. But yeah, if you want to participate, check the video description. There should be a link that can get you into the Discord. And from there, take a look for the Painting Knight-Judicators channel. You'll see all the rules for the contest there. You basically just post a picture of your model with a timestamp, and the winners will be contacted privately. We'll show their results on the live stream like we did here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with, because the Knight-Judicator is a fantastic model, like one of the best new Stormcast models they put out.
I've got 4 to paint now, so I'm gonna enter.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna be running the Great Hunt, which is a list that I talk about in the Discord with 5 Knight-Judicators. I think I'm just going to cut it down to 4, and then I'm going to run some crossbows. But that's what I'm going to be running next weekend at the Grot's Gone Wild tournament in Welland, which is Mini Wargaming Studios. We're going to be playing there, and hopefully I do well with it.
Hopefully you didn't give away your secret.
There's a lot of other stuff in the list too. It's fine. If somebody there watches this podcast and brings like the perfect counter and gets matched up against me, then they deserve it, frankly. Like, they're doing their research. They're on point. All right, so that's going to close up the live stream. Hopefully everything's okay with Mrigank and the police. And thanks for joining us, guys. And we'll see you in the next one.
Cheers, everybody.